All right, next up, we're going to dive into an asana practice highlighting all of our abdominals, our core. As always, it's nice to have 2 blocks or a block nearby, and we're going to start on our backs. So come on down to the mat. We'll pause in a corpse pose, palms face up, and just take a second to settle in. Like every practice, take a deep breath. Notice how the body feels today. As you're laying here, start to visualize all those layers that we talked about in the abdominal region and how they can work together to create this strength in the center of the body. And take one more full breath. All right, and now we'll start to break down the core muscles one by one. We're going to start deep, so transverse abdominis, TVA. And I want you to bring the legs together and kind of squeeze the inner thighs together, pull the toes towards the face, and let's bring our arms behind our head. We're going to really focus on completely relaxing the upper body. This is a very, very subtle sensation or subtle energy that we'll feel deep in our belly. So we'll focus on pulling lumbar or low back to the ground, and it doesn't have to touch, just so that there's this slight control. Again, upper body completely relaxed. And when you exhale, bring the right knee in towards the chest. Pull the belly down. Pull the belly up. And have this subtle idea of cinching in or knitting in the ribs. So those floating ribs pull in. Very subtle movement deep in the abdominal cavity. Extend that right leg out. We're going to let it hover here. Again, cinching in. Subtle pull back of belly button towards spine. Ensure that lumbar or low back hasn't lifted too far off of the mat. And exhale, bring that right knee back in. We're going to stick with that. So that simple idea of knitting the floating ribs in, pulling the belly button down and up. And that subtle energy, maybe behind the belly button. Extend the right leg out, allow it to hover. Upper body completely relaxed. And exhale, bring the right knee back in. And so we'll just stay with this. Our goal is not so much to work into the abs or the core, but just to feel that subtle shift or that subtle hugging in as we move the leg back and forth. Relax the upper body. And go about 30 seconds more here on the right leg. If you start to tense up, maybe create some space between the molars. Relax the shoulder blades down towards the ground. And just check in, floating ribs back, belly pulling in, low back controlled. One more here. Reach the right leg out and hover. And then go ahead and relax it down. We'll do the same thing on the left side. As you exhale, bring that left knee in and set up the foundation. Knit the ribs in, push the belly down, low back. Has its natural curve, but there's some control as we engage in the center. Upper body is relaxed. And then extend the left leg out. Just allow the heel to hover above the ground, maybe an inch or two. And exhale, Bring the knee back in. Send it out, allow it to hover. Bring it right back in. Again, not a lot of work. We're not coming into that traditional crunch here. It's very subtle, right behind the belly button. And try not to let the right hip lift or the right glute come off of the ground. Back and forth with your breath. I find sometimes when you close the eyes, you can sink in a little bit deeper, noticing those shifts. We'll go about 3 more times, left side. Of course, if that leg doesn't feel like it wants to lengthen all the way straight, we can do the same thing here. We're just extending up, feeling the hover and pulling back in. Last set. We'll extend the left leg out, hover, toes towards face, floating ribs pull in, and then we'll go ahead and relax. And we'll come back to that throughout this entire practice, that subtle engagement right behind the belly button. Moving on into our obliques, some muscles that we're more familiar with. And we'll bend the knees, bringing the soles of the feet in, close to the hips, maybe to a point where you can reach them. And we're going to start with some lateral movement. So belly pulls in. We're going to lift the shoulder blades off of the mat, create space between the chin and the chest. Maybe you act as if there's an orange or an apple there. And the hands will come down to our sides. Press into the feet. Low back here should be about flat to the mat. Hands can be up or down, that doesn't matter. And as you exhale, tilt, so you're bringing the left shoulder closer to the left hip and reach left fingers towards the left heel. Come back to center. Same thing, reach, bringing the right floating ribs closer to the right hip and back to center. And we'll just keep moving like that with our breath. Shoulder blades coming off the ground. Vision can rise. That's going to keep the chin off of the chest. Side to side. If that feels a little too intense for you, you can kind of do the same thing just from the mat, engaging the side body as you reach side to side. You can set it to breath, so inhale, pull through center. Exhale, tilt. Inhale, lift. Exhale, tilt. You start to feel the side body begin to fire and turn on, maybe even tire out a little bit, noticing or saying hello to our obliques. One more set, both sides. Reach and tap. Bring it on back through center, and then go ahead and relax. Deep breath. So we know the obliques have two major movements. We have that lateral movement, and then we have the crossing over the body. And we're gonna come into that next. So we'll extend the legs out, and we'll take the right arm out first. So we're still on our backs. Even here, we want that cinching in or that hugging in of the floating ribs. Find the core. Again, lumbar can be slightly lifted, but it's controlled. And we'll take our left hand behind our head, as if you're going to come into a crunch, and you will. So when we exhale, we're going to bring the left knee in towards the chest. We're going to lift up and then cross the body so that the left elbow comes towards the right knee. And we can start to feel those obliques pull the left rib cage towards the right hip. And so we'll squeeze in, and we'll extend it all back out. One of those movements that the slower you go, the deeper you can connect, feeling all of those subtle movements and firing of muscles. Exhale, pull in, cross over the body, And inhale, release. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, release. And then just keep with that movement, slow and steady. We'll go twice more. Last set, pull it in. Pause here. So lift left shoulder blade, tilt it across the body. How close can the left elbow come towards the right knee? And then go ahead and release. Allow that right side body just to relax. We'll do the same thing, second set. So left palm will come out, right hand behind the head, like you're moving into a crunch. We'll do the same thing. So as the left knee bends in, lift up into a crunch, take the shoulder blade off of the ground, bring the right elbow towards the left knee, come across the body, feel the side left body turn on, contract, and then bring it back down. Exhale, cross over. Inhale, release. And keep moving with your own breath. Dropping into the side body. A few more sets here. On this last set, we'll pull in and we'll hold. So we're crossing over the body, pulling the left knee in, and we can imagine the right floating ribs moving closer to the left hip crease. Squeeze in. Feel the contraction or the firing in the left side body. And then we'll go ahead and release. Take a second on your backs. Before we move into the next crunch, just take a deep breath into side body. Coming to probably our favorite, our rectus abdominis, and that's the muscles in the front. We always consider those our six-pack. So we're more familiar with this motion. We're going to take the legs up, and I like to cross the right leg over the left. It could be either way. You kind of have that cinching of the feet together. Knees can be bent. We don't have to straighten the legs here. And we're just going to come into a regular crunch, the old regular crunch. So as you exhale, pull the belly in. Think about that flexion. So you're using those front abdominals to pull the chin or the chest closer to the hips. And then inhale and release. Doesn't have to be a fast motion to feel this. Squeeze in and release. Even here, we really want the elbows to stay out, space between chin and chest. And awareness is really right in the front or midline of our body. Keep it going with breath. We'll go about 8 more times here. Exhale, squeeze up, lift the shoulder blades. Inhale, release. Exhale, work the muscles. Inhale, let them go. Now we're going to add on to this just a bit. So we might start to feel this kind of around the floating ribs or right above the navel, the belly button. Let's switch legs just to even everything out. And this time, as we lift the shoulder blades, we're going to do that same action with the hips, and we're just going to slightly lift. It's just a slight energetic squeezing the lower abdominals, and hips lift off of the ground. And that'll happen at the same time. So we'll prepare. Take an inhale, fill up. Exhale, squeeze it all in and up. And then let it release. Slow and steady exhale, lift. Let it go. Work with your breath. And try to even close the eyes. Sink into the feeling. Let's go 3 more times. Exhale, lift. Maybe get a little bit higher here. And on the last one, we'll go ahead and hold. Lift the shoulder blades. Elbows are out. Space between chin and chest. Lift the hips. Hover there. Consistency in the breath. And then go ahead and release it down. Knees come in towards the chest, and you can rock a little bit side to side. Let's roll off to the right side as we move around to find downward facing dog. Take a second in that down dog. Less about the shoulders. We know what's happening in the shoulders. We know we're going to melt the heels towards the earth. But can we bring the awareness into the belly? What is it doing in down dog? And can we find that subtle activation of those deep abdominal muscles? Maybe even a sensation of them hugging the low back or the lumbar spine. As always, if you need to pedal it out or find any movements here to get comfortable for our flow practice, feel free. As we find our next in-breath, bend the knees, lift the heels, take a look past the hands, and step forward. Forward fold. And take an inhale and lengthen. Exhale and drop it down. Inhale, bend into the knees, rise all the way up, prayer to the sky. And exhale, hands down to heart center. So we're going to come into what we know, sun salutations A. And less about the alignment, about the chaturanga, but more about that subtle pulling in, that subtle knitting in of the floating ribs, pulling in of the belly, and that hugging around the spine. So awareness as we go through a really familiar sequence. We'll move to the front of our mats, feet hip distance. And even in our mountain pose, we find that tilt of the tailbone slightly down. We know that rectus abdominis allows us to find that tilt. Find that subtle knitting in of the ribs, and the palms will face forward. Set the breath. And keep the awareness all in the center of your body as you inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, swan dive forward. Take an inhale, half lift. Exhale, bend the knees, plant the palms, and step back, high plank pose. Think about the belly as you inhale, lengthen. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, roll over the toes. Think about the belly stretching now as you open through the heart. And exhale back, downward facing dog. If you're comfortable enough with this sequence, maybe you close the eyes. Just sinking in a little bit deeper to what's happening in your core. Inhale, bend the knees, look past the hands. Exhale, step forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold it down. Inhale, reverse. Rise all the way up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Check in. Where are the ribs? What's happening in the belly? Where's the tailbone? Inhale, reach up. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, bend the knees, plant the palms. Once again, step it back, high plank pose. If you find a modification in your flow, maybe knees down, find it. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, Let's come all the way down to the belly. Inhale, cobra pose. Pull the shoulders back. Stretch through the front side of the body. Exhale, release. And we'll find downward facing dog. So we know that the core stabilizes us as we move through our practice. It's always turning on. And so we're just taking it slower, noticing those subtle shifts. We'll go through this sequence just once more. Inhale. Take it forward as you exhale. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold. Inhale, bring it on up. Exhale, take a second, hands to heart. Set it all up again. Come back to that foundation that you know. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, bring it on down. Inhale, lengthen, look forward. Exhale, plant the palms, step it back, high plank pose. Exhale, when you're ready, use the toes, bend the elbows. Inhale, stretch the core. Exhale, downward facing dog. Take a breath. Let's go ahead and drop our knees for a second. We are going to come into tapping the shoulders in our plank pose. Focus, again, is really on stabilizing, finding the abdominals, and minimizing the movement or the sway in the body. If holding plank for that long is not for you, you can certainly modify with the knees down, just in a modified plank. We can even start there and then add on. So we'll bring the knees down behind the hips. Toes can be flat or at a pivot. We have that slight external rotation of the upper arm bone. Remember, we're stabilizing the rotator cuff and the shoulder blades, the scapula, by pressing into the earth and finding that balance. Now engage the core. Really kind of pull in and up. Use it as your stabilizers as you tap the right shoulder. Again, minimizing that movement so it's easy to kind of go from side to side. We're not really working much there. Can we stabilize? Can we find that center midline as we tap each shoulder? So look forward. No wrinkles in the back of the neck. Your core is keeping you strong and steady. Side to side. You can always do the same thing from plank. Remember, it's easy to sway it back and forth. So find the shoulders, engage the core, and as slow as possible, tap the shoulders. Go about 10 more seconds here. Even it out. And then we'll come onto our belly. Let's stack our palms underneath our forehead. Drop the forehead down and let everything go. So a lot of work there into our shoulders and our belly. Just let it relax. When you feel ready, bring the hands underneath the shoulders. Let's press it back into a quick child's pose. Nestle the chest between the thighs. Drop the forehead down. Reach the arms forward. We'll come on up. Downward facing dog. So moving into our main sequence, again, less caring about the alignment and more just about those subtle shifts or energy in the belly. Inhale, reach the right leg up towards the sky. And as you exhale, think about this. Even the core allows this movement to happen. As you bring the knee in towards the chest, we round in the upper back and quietly step the foot in between the hands. We're going to move into crescent lunge. Come on up. Now think about what happens in the core here. We're going to bend the back knee in this crescent lunge so that we have some tilt or some availability in the hips to tilt back and forth. Well, we know we want to pull the right hip back. With that back knee bent, take the tailbone once again slightly down towards the ground. We feel the core turn on. It's with us. Inhale, reach your arms up. So even in crescent lunge, we have that tendency of coming into the low back and kind of just letting the belly go. And that's easy to do, right? It's harder to do it the right way. So knit the floating ribs in. Same thing. Hug and turn on, reach up. As you exhale, we're going to pitch the chest halfway forward. So we want to stay high in our right hip as the chest comes forward, and we'll reach the arms forward. So again, sometimes we see that tendency of kind of hanging out here, really active, feeling the belly support the back. One more breath. We're going to inhale, come back through crescent lunge. We're going to turn to the left. So toes are going to be out, heels in, bend into the knees and bring it down into horse. Hands move to heart center. So we want to take the knees towards the pinky toes. We feel our inner thighs turn on. We feel our outer thighs turn on. And if we can, we want that knee maybe to hover over the heel. We're going to bring the arms behind us. So remember this from the ground. Pull the belly in, tailbone down. We're just going to start to tilt side to side. So we're going to activate our obliques as we tilt. Same thing, so it's the exhale, bring the elbow towards the knee. Inhale, find your center. Exhale and tilt. Inhale and lift. Remember, it doesn't have to be anything fast. Slow and steady, and we feel everything turn on. Keep it up. Notice that here, we're bringing the rib cage closer to the hips. Now let's sink down at center. Maybe you take it a little bit lower. Inhale, lengthen. Let it go. Exhale, we'll come to a warrior two towards the back of our mat. We can set that up heel to heel intersection. We have that external rotation in the left leg. Same thing, pull it in, lengthen the arms. So now we'll take a nice stretch to what we worked in our peaceful warrior. Right hand down the right thigh, reach up and over with the left arm, and imagine what you just worked as it squeezed you to the side. We're now stretching. As you exhale, cartwheel the arms around. From here, we're just going to simply lift left leg up towards the sky. So we've just switched sides. Now think about that pulling of the leg forward. What has to happen in the entire body to get the foot in between the hands? Maybe we lift the right heel, bring the knee in towards the chest, activate core as you pull the shoulders over the wrists. Pull the heel in towards the glute, round the upper back. Control that step forward. Same thing, inhale, rise up, crescent lunge. So we're going to take that option of that modification of bending the back knee, playing a little bit with this tilt. Again, it's easy to kind of tilt it forward. So we're going to ask the core to help us out. With that back knee bent, we take the frontal hip bones towards the rib cage. We know rectus abdominis starts to turn on, our six-pack abs, and we have that tilt of the tailbone. Reach the arms up. Now exhale, pitch the chest halfway forward. Find that comfort or that hugging in. I like to imagine that deep transverse abdominis hugs the low back and it feels protected and safe. Reach the arms forward. Lift in and out of that left hip. When you're ready for the inhale, back through crescent lunge. We'll turn towards the right this time and exhale, bring it down for horse. We won't stay here as long on this set. So think about those knees pressing out, tailbone tilting, core is with you. And we'll inhale, lengthen up. Exhale, warrior two towards the front. So we're back facing the front of our mat. Take a nice stretch into what we worked again. So left arm down, left leg, reach up and over. Keep the integrity of everything happening in the lower body. Exhale, cartwheel the arms around, and we'll just simply step back, downward facing dog. We're going to do the same thing. Inhale, left leg rises. Exhale, find your core as you bring it forward. This time, tap left knee to left elbow. Hover. Maybe it taps close to the tricep. And then inhale, float it back up. Exhale, we'll twist this time. So left knee, bring it to the right elbow. And inhale, bring it up. Exhale, round, find the core, squeeze it in, step the foot forward. Inhale, rise up, high lunge. Set it up, come back to that foundation that you know so well. We'll exhale, halfway forward. Inhale, we're going to turn to the right. We'll find that horse stance once again, toes out, heels in, bend down into the knees. A little bit easier here to see that pop. So we want to take the tailbone down. Course with you, once more, hands behind the head. Stabilize in the lower body, so nothing's moving down there, or at least minimizing that movement as we take elbow to knee and elbow to knee. Follow your breath. So the exhale is the tilt, and the inhale is the lift. One more set. All right, bring it back through center. Inhale, lengthen up. Exhale, warrior two to the back of your mat. We won't be here long, so we'll stretch that side body once more. Peaceful warrior, reach. Imagine, again, the rib cage kind of pulling apart from each other. Cartwheel the arms around. We'll float the right leg towards the sky. As we exhale, bring the knee and tap as high as you can on that right arm. Inhale, float it up. Exhale, we're going to twist. So we know the obliques are with us a bit, right? Tap right knee as high as you can on the left arm. And inhale, bring it up. Exhale, round, squeeze the heel in as you move forward. Step the right foot forward. Inhale, come on up. Crescent lunge. Exhale, pitch it halfway forward. Inhale, rise up. Just a quick horse here, sink it down. Maybe you move the legs a little bit, open through the hips. Inhale through center. Exhale, two to the front of your mat. Stretch that side body. Reach and peaceful. And then go ahead, cartwheel around and step it back, downward facing dog. Adding on a bit, inhale, right leg's gonna rise up. As you exhale, bring it forward and just go ahead and kind of come up to standing. So we're gonna move into triangle pose, and all of our thought or focus is around what's happening in the belly. So back foot and that thigh slightly turn in. We want that slight bend in the front knee. We're not gonna come down as low as we normally go. So again, our focus is here. Sometimes you'll hear someone cue, like you're holding a beach ball as you tilt forward. But I want the right arm on the right thigh. You can always use a block if you want, as you start to tilt forward. Now we're using some of the core, right, to tilt or open the rib cage as we move down into triangle. Maybe you just reach the left arm up, and if it's possible, maybe the right. Now, as you're holding that, you can see how intense it gets in the abdominals. I want you to keep that sensation, keep it all turning on and firing, and just kind of like fairy tap the right arm to the right thigh. Again, using that core to tilt open, rib cage towards the sky. Bring it on up, and we'll move into extended side angle. Right knee will bend. We're going to come into that same concept. In both of these poses, we have such a tendency of kind of just hanging out and acting like it's a break, but it's a great opportunity to, again, tap into what's happening in the abdominals. So we bend into that right knee, lean forward. Again, it's just a little tap of the elbow onto the knee. Use the core to tilt and open the chest. Stack the shoulders, left arm rises. You can even take that left arm forward. You can remind yourself to use the core, acting as if maybe I'd come up and pull the elbow out. Can the upper body stay in that same position? All right, moving into our side plank. Left arm will come down. We're going to start to open up. Remember what you know about the shoulder. So you're pulling the head of the humerus back. You're finding the stability between the shoulder blade and the rotator cuff. Now this right foot can stay hip distance or right in front of the hip. If that feels most comfortable, the focus here again is on the core. So we're going to use the side body to press away from the earth as we lift the hips high. Maybe you take that top arm towards the front of the mat, stretch through the side body as you're working to lift. And then drop right arm down and step it back, downward facing dog. Same thing, we'll take left leg towards the sky. Exhale, use that belly as you step the foot forward. We're just gonna come on up. We're gonna move into triangle again. So set the feet up. We have that slight internal rotation of this back leg. Front knee, just a micro bend so that we know the muscles are with us. And then open the chest up. We're gonna reach forward. We're not gonna go down as far as we normally do, but we're gonna find the belly turning on to stabilize us, to keep the chest where it is as we tilt the rib cage towards the sky. So that left arm just kind of taps down. Right arm rises. So again, maybe you do kind of take that visualization of holding a big beach ball, keeping the chest where it is, rounding towards the sky. If you drop that left arm, can you hold traditional triangle with the core? So not just hanging out here. Bring it on up. Take that same concept into our extended side angle. So we'll inhale, lengthen. As you exhale, lean forward. Left elbow just taps that left thigh. Again, so right rib cage, it's twirling towards the sky. Belly button starts to twist you up. Right arm rises. Even weight in both feet. Sip the ribs in. So sometimes we can also hang out here in a back bend. Can we pull the hips down and under? Floating ribs, knit in, core turns on. It's a really strong extended side angle. All right, release it down. We're going to come into that side plank. So if you liked the modification on the other side, you can take the left knee just by the hip. Remember what's happening with the right shoulder. So we're going to pull it back, engage, step that left foot back. So I'm going to come into a full side plank on this side. I want you to choose what feels best to you. We're going to stack the feet, both frontal hip bones towards the front, framed, and then find that action of pressing into the earth to lift up. A little bit of that action of stacking the chest and the shoulders and reach up. Maybe that top hand comes towards the front of the mat. One more breath. And then we'll release it back towards the ground and downward facing dog. Take a few deep breaths. We'll move to the front of our mat. Inhale, prepare, take a look forward. As you exhale, step it forward. Inhale, lengthen. This time as we exhale, go ahead and bend the knees. Let the belly just rest on the thighs here. So a little bit of a release to our low back. You can grab opposite elbows, let the head hang. Just take a second to let it all go. These muscles are always working for us and with us. We're just learning how to be aware of them, how to feel them. Go ahead and release the hands. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. We're going to move into chair. We're going to keep the feet hip distance, so it's more of a king chair. Bend the knees as you rise up, and it's all the same, right? We've done it so many times. Tailbone tilts. So we know that tilt of the pelvic bowl is stimulated a little bit by that core. So it's just a slight posterior tilt. Belly turns on. Floating ribs, instead of popping out, knit them in. Find that deeper abdominal, the transverse abdominis. Hug as you cinch, and we feel that protection around the low back. Maybe you sink down a little bit deeper, arms can rise, and then focus on the breath. So another pose we hold all the time, can you change it slightly just by deepening your awareness or your connection to what's happening behind the belly? From there, pitch the chest halfway forward. We'll take our arms behind us and imagine that kind of opening of the pecs for the front of the body. Palms will face the ground. Again, belly, what's going on? As you lean the weight forward, we're going to peel the heels off the ground. And maybe it's just a little bit. Maybe it's a lot. But again, we're not moving here a ton because we're finding the stability in the muscles that are strong. Go ahead and release out, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. We're just going to step back with the left leg, and we're going to come into just a nice stretch. So right foot will come out to the edge of the mat. Let's drop our left knee down behind our hip. Uncurl those toes. So lizard lunge, there's a little bit of external rotation here on the right hip or the right leg. We want the knee still to track over the toes. And then we'll leave the chest lifted here so we get that slight kind of stretch of the abdominals. It's a great place to use some blocks. So if the ground feels far away, bring the blocks in. So we're stretching nicely into that hip. And as we stay lifted, we do feel slight back bend. So the core's still with us, but we're just stretching through the front of the body. You can even take the blocks around the hips. More traditionally, we see it forward. So if you feel more comfortable here, just try to avoid rounding the back. We want to still feel that stretch here in the hip. And focus on the breath. Close the eyes and breathe into the front of the left hip and deep into the right hip. And take one more full breath. As you come out, if you took that option of dropping to the forearms, lift first. Allow that moment of rebound in the hips. It's quite a deep hip stretch. We'll uncurl the left toes, lift the left knee. We can heel toe the right foot back to center, and then we're just going to step forward, forward fold. Exhale, just go ahead and hang out for a second. Inhale, half lift, switching sides. We'll exhale, step the right leg back, and then wiggle until that right knee drops behind the hip. Uncurl the toes. Left foot's going to wiggle to the outside edge of the mat, kneecap tracking over that center toe. So hip stretch really on both sides. We have the psoas or the hip flexor on the right side, and deeper slight external stretch here on the left side. So remember, option to use the blocks to open the chest and really stretch the front of the belly. All the abdominals open up. So we know anytime we're back bending or we're opening the chest, we're stretching the front of the body. As always, you can stay there, or you can drop down to the forearms. Avoid the rounding of the back. Think about sinking or melting the belly down. And close the eyes, breathing into the hips. One more full breath. And as we come out, you're on the forearms, press up first. Find that little bit of contraction of pulling back and out of it slightly. Uncurl the right toes, lift the right knee. You can take the blocks out of the way. Bring the left foot back to center, and one last time we'll step back, downward facing dog. Remember, in a pose we hold so often, even here we can find those deep, deep abdominals doing some work, hugging the low back, knitting the floating ribs in. Releasing down, bend the knees. You can cross the ankles, and we'll come onto our backs. All right, so a little bit of work before we stretch it all out, Supta Baddha Konasana. We'll just take a second there to allow the hips to open up. So soles of the feet touching, knees sprawling out. You can place one hand over your heart and your belly. Maybe, again, visualizing what you know about the core muscles, the strength that they give you. And we're going to keep Supta Baddha Konasana. And we're going to find the core just once more into those traditional crunches that we're familiar with, and then we'll add in some obliques as we twist. So we'll inhale, peel the chest off of the ground again. And I like to wiggle side to side, really to find the lift of the shoulder blades. So shoulder blades aren't touching the ground, and reach your prayer forward. Chin off of chest. And we have some rounding in the upper back here. You can kind of take that away by just pulling the humeral head back slightly. Find your belly so we feel our abdominals as soon as the shoulder blades lift off of the mat. We're just going to take little pulses. So each pulse kind of drops in to that six-pack that we're so comfortable with working. Pulse it forward. Reach fingertips towards the toes. Press the soles of the feet in towards each other. So you find some resistance. There's a little bit of your lower body working here. Keep pulsing. Maybe it's an exhale. Maybe it's a quicker exhale. So you exhale, let it go. Exhale. Keep it up. Now we're going to take our prayer over to the left knee and reach the right shoulder blade off of the ground, fingertips towards that left knee. Bring it back to center. Switch sides. Reach fingertips towards right knee, left shoulder blade curls off of the mat. Back to center, lift, and switch. Maybe you skip center now. So you're just reaching as far as you can. Fingertips towards kneecaps. And we'll go for 8. Keep it up. Last one. Reach. Bring it back through center. Give me 5 more pulses. And then let it go. One more time. We'll just allow that Supta Baddha Konasana to open up the hips. Hands back to the belly. Settle the breath. We're going to move into stretching the abdominals. We know that if we work them as we move side to side or in flexion, we're going to do the opposite to open them. So help the knees back together if you need to. We're going to find our back bends. So soles of the feet move closer to the glutes. You don't need to be able to touch them. We'll find bridge first. We've been here before. So frontal hip bones just moving up towards the sky. You can wiggle the shoulder blades underneath you, maybe this time interlacing the hands. So shoulder blades retracting, moving towards the midline. Think about lifting the frontal hip bones. Remember, the chin moves away from the chest, but the chest tries to reach the chin. Press into the feet. You can feel a little bit of the lower body here working. But imagine the core stretching open. As you come out, let the shoulder blades move first. Hands come out to your sides. Allow that curve to stay in the back. So let the glutes come down first. And then just take a second. Maybe the knees knock together, feet mat distance. Let the low back go. So on the second set, you have the option to stay in bridge, Maybe you use one of your blocks and you come into a supported bridge, placing the block underneath your sacrum. I'm going to move into a wheel, so you have your choice of back bend. Feet, again, hip distance, especially if we're lifting up into wheel, we want to be sure that those inner thighs are kind of squeezing towards each other. And we'll take the hands towards our shoulders if you're moving into wheel, so your choice of back bend. As you inhale, lift up. In that wheel pose, you can still kind of take the shoulder blades towards each other, open the chest, and think about the heart rolling past the elbows. You can use the legs as that resistance to open. Nice curve in the back, but nice stretch to the front of the body. One more breath. Slowly come out, bend the elbows, tuck the chin towards the chest, let the back of the head rest on the earth. You find that bridge position first as you drop down. Butt relaxes, glutes relax. Wiggle the shoulder blades out. Ending just with a nice twist. Bring the feet in again, lift the hips, rock them to the right, set them back down. So now the knees are going to go to the left. We'll allow them to roll over. So we have kind of more of our hips directly underneath our shoulders. You can squeeze the knees in, reach that left arm out, right arm out, and chin over the chest. Start to slow the breath down. As we move out, we'll have to bring those hips back to center. You can neutralize the back or stabilize the back for a second, pulling those frontal hip bones towards the rib cage. We have that sensation of knitting once more, but the low back presses into the earth. Just a feel-good position. Switching sides. Press into the feet, lift the hips. Take them to the left, drop the hips back down, knees to the right. So we stack the knees up nicely, hips are directly underneath the shoulders. Left arm out, right arm out, and take the chin over that left shoulder. As we start to come out, bring it all back to center. Maybe you sway the knees a little bit side to side. Moving into Shavasana, create a space that feels really comfortable to you. Maybe you have props around that you'd like to use, but we'll take up some space, shoulder blades flat, letting it all go as you wiggle down. Take a deep breath and fill up. Feel the belly fill. So it expands as you inhale. And feel that sense of softening as you exhale. Remember, we talked a little bit about the diaphragm. So that idea that when the lungs expand and the belly expands, the diaphragm actually flattens or contracts down into the abdominal cavity. As the lungs deflate, The diaphragm domes up into the lungs. It assists in pressing that air out. And we get that natural sensation of letting go or surrendering. And keep that visualization going as you pause in this Shavasana, your final corpse pose. With that deep belly breath, calming the entire body, massaging the organs. Knowing that the core is always with you. It's not something new to us, but we're just becoming aware of it. We're dropping into those subtle shifts, the way that we can turn it on to be strong and stable. As always, you can stay with this deep belly breath, calming the body for as long as you need. It's your final Shavasana. Namaste.